another edition of What's the Story here on the People Chronicles. What's the story with the Spiritual Exploration Project? Have you heard about that? I did, and I know exactly who to talk to. Dr. Harry Serio is with us. How are you, Harry?
Hello.
Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
So you are the pastor at Christ Church and Temple, right?
I am now, yes.
And prior to that, you were in Kutztown?
I was in St. John's United Church of Christ in Kutztown.
So this spiritual exploration, you and I have had many long, philosophical, I should say, conversations. So you go, where do you start? And I guess that's my question. Where did you start with this notion of a spiritual exploration project? How did it come about?
Well, it begins with the recognition that every person is on a spiritual journey. And that spiritual journey will take them in many different directions based upon their culture and their ethnicity and people that have influenced them. But we recognize that everyone does have a story to tell that reflects their own inner spirituality. And I would say that probably in the course of my 32-year ministry at St. John's, we encouraged people to give expression to their faith journeys. And consequently, we had members of the church who came from various backgrounds. So we had Catholics and Methodists and Baptists, and our Christian education director at one time was Jewish.
Wait a minute. This is a Lutheran church, right?
No, the United Church of Christ.
United Church, so the UCC church, it sounds ecumenical rather than UCC per se.
Well, we followed a United Church of Christ liturgy, and we had our background in Reformed theology.
Okay.
But it was not a kind of a theology that we imposed upon people.
That's beautiful.
We listened to what they had to say and helped them in their own journey.
So in those 30 years, what did you learn? How did that impact you, I suppose, as you move forward?
People asked me when I retired what I was going to do next, and I said, well, I might become a Buddhist Quaker.
Okay.
But I do like the idea that there's a great deal of validity and truth in so many different faith expressions.
Is there a common thread in all of them?
Well, yes. The common thread would be one's own existence and how we came here. Well, that's the question that people are asking and searching for. And so when we talk about gathering people together, we're not talking about people who are only members of the historic faith traditions, but they are also persons who have no faith community or tradition. The common phrase today is they're spiritual but not religious.
It is true. There's I guess a fairly steep decline is a fair assessment in organized religion. But that doesn't mean people aren't spiritual or faithful.
That's correct. On one of the applications, I guess at one of our local colleges, they asked for persons to identify their faith tradition, and virtually 50% said none.
Really?
So we can put a category up there and say, well, I'm a nun.
Not to be confused with sister. So the goal of the Spiritual Exploration Project is to what?
The goal of the Spiritual Exploration Project is to enhance the spirituality of persons who are looking to express their faith in various ways. And the way we're going about doing this is to listen to one another. Everybody has a story to tell, and that story grows out of their faith journey. So we have, so far, this is a process that is in evolution. Where we are now may not be where we will end up. That's the way it is with a lot of organizations. It's a journey. And in a journey, the journey is the thing that is important, not the destination.
Fair.
So this is where we're at. And so far, we've developed 3 expressions or initiatives.
Okay.
And one of these initiatives is interfaith dialogue. And we're aware of Common Heart, which is a means for Jews, Muslims, and Christians to get to know one another. But we're looking to broaden that because we recognize that here in Berks County, we not only have a Jewish, Muslim, and Christian community, but we also have other expressions as well, such as Buddhists, Wiccans, Zen, Hindu, the Hmong people. You know, all of them have their own way of looking at life.
And the nuns, people
And the
who say, I
nuns.
have no faith. So
Yes.
it sounds like you're welcoming everybody.
So that's the interfaith dialogue.
Is there a date for that yet?
And what we're doing with that right now, that's going to be our first event, which will
Right.
be on April 17th, because we're aware that so many people are misguided in their thinking about the Islamic community. And because of the acts perpetrated by ISIS, they think that Islam is a terroristic religion.
And one doesn't equal the other by any
Absolutely
stretch
not,
of the imagination.
by any stretch of the imagination. So what we want to do with our initial presentation is to have a community forum on God and violence. And we have asked Julia O'Brien, who is a professor of Old Testament at Lancaster Theological Seminary, to speak on that topic and to look at the Old Testament texts, and then by extension to see how other faith traditions view God.
We could find violence in almost every faith.
Absolutely.
But again, that doesn't define the faith.
No. And those, in most cases, they are aberrations of the faith.
Okay.
Christians, notoriously, I mean, we've had the Crusades, we've got the Ku Klux Klan, we've got radical fundamentalism that has its own form of terrorism, and the Jewish community with Meir Kahane and his movement is another one. The Buddhists, there are some groups in Myanmar that have become involved in terrorist activities. So every religion has its own expression, but that's not
by making
one.
that one event in April and talking about God and violence from the perspective of all of these faiths and having that dialogue. Is the goal to dispel myths or preconceived notions or understand better?
Understand.
Understand.
I think that's the important part of all of our three initiatives. The other two initiatives is the development of a contemplative spiritual community that would also become involved in social justice concerns and social action. And I've suggested to the group that we adopt the protocols and teachings of the Iona community in Scotland, which was founded by
Could you elaborate on
George
that?
MacLeod.
What is
Yes. Iona is a community that grew out of the Celtic tradition. It was founded by George MacLeod. And George MacLeod wanted to have a group that would look in, but then also look out and work in the world. So people come together from all over the world. They study together. They engage in contemplative activities, and then they go out into the world and do constructive work. Taizé would be another one.
So that will be the model for this second element.
That would be the model, yes.
Okay, and what's the third?
And the third one is basically storytelling, gathering stories of people and hearing where they have come from, what their hopes are, what their dreams are, what their aspirations are, what was in their background to bring them to this particular place in time.
And as you said, this is a journey. So from your days at Kutztown, at the church in Kutztown, the UCC church, and experiencing this kind of ecumenical community within your church building, to this idea of we're all on a spiritual journey, what has been the impact? You've already touched people because it sounds like there's a gelling happening, and you say we, so people are joining you.
We have a group of about, maybe 15, 20 people.
Okay.
And at our first, for example, our contemplative spirituality group, which is met under the auspices of Reverend Paul Clark, who was the chaplain at Albright. We met at Sylvan Chapel. There were only 13 people there, but they represented 6 different faith traditions and no faith tradition.
Have there been surprises for you along the way, Harry, as you're doing this, in terms of impact or what you've discovered?
Well, I've learned a long time ago to go with the flow and see how things develop and how they work out, and one path will lead to another, and so on. So I'm still in a discovery mode.
Okay.
And so if you say, am I surprised? No, I'm not surprised.
No surprises.
But I'm encouraged.
Are people continuing to join? And even more importantly, if anybody's listening or watching right now, how could they be part of the project and learn more about it and maybe even participate?
Well, they can be in contact with me.
How do we do that?
And do that by email. You can send me an email at hlserio@aol.com.
Now wait,
HLSERIO@aol.com.
Thank you.
Or we'll put you on a mailing list and attend our meetings. And
Perfect.
it seems like every time we meet, we have to kind of redefine the process.
Oh, so that's very malleable and dynamic.
Yes. Sure, you have been at some of our storytelling
I
meetings.
did.
Every one of our storytelling meetings puts us off in a slightly different direction.
So at these meetings, for whichever arm that has been defined at this point in the Spiritual Exploration Project, are there new players moving in and out all the time?
Yes, they are.
Or just in?
When you say out, moving
In other
out,
words, have they maybe wandered away and went, okay, I learned that, and I'm not going to come back for that, maybe and join a different element?
Well, as I said before, every person is on their own particular
Correct.
tradition. And it's just like when you come to a worship service and listen to a sermon. You come with your own agenda. So you are listening for what you need to hear or want to hear. And if you don't hear that, then
is so
it's not
true.
helpful to you.
Have you experienced people coming in, as you say, and we all do, that's very astute, with our own agenda or our own notion, and that agenda maybe have changed a little bit, or their eyes opened a bit, and they go in a different direction?
Well, that's what we hope will happen.
Okay.
That as they interact with other people and learn about other people's journeys, they will be so inspired to share their own and to participate and help others develop this. Because it's only in understanding one another that we can develop true community.
That's very
In fact, the word communication, being a former Latin teacher, comes from the Latin derivation within the walls.
Oh.
So we bring people within the walls. Communio. Okay.
Gotcha.
So the idea is that we can talk with one another if we are in the same place.
This is a beautiful idea, Harry, and I'm very grateful that you, number one, thought of it and took the step, the first step on the journey, and have invited all of us to come along. So if you want to, reach out, HLSERIO, to Dr. Serio at AOL.com, and we'll journey together and see where this goes. So we'll get together again and find out where we are maybe in 6 months.
And we will be surprised.
I'm sure. Thank you so much.
Want to know more about who's doing what in Berks County? Check out the stories on thepeoplechronicles.com.
These community stories are made possible in part by BCTV, Susie Ray Design, Queen City Family Restaurant, Lamar Advertising, Heidelberg Family Restaurant, Reading Air, Lions and Hole, Peanut Bar, and Kutztown University.